You have pictures to look at here on this slide. There is John F. Kennedy's secret folder that he kept with all of his information about the Berlin crisis, top secret stuff. You have the Berlin Wall being built, and you have people on both sides kind of watching. I have those pictures I'm going to show, but in a different point of view. And you have here, I don't know, sorry, it's like blurry. You got actually these checkpoints. So you have people like looking over the wall. You have tanks and things, and that's a checkpoint for people to cross over from both sides. And then there's a kind of zoomed out view of the wall. Those checkpoints, one of the most famous checkpoints, if you were to cross to West Berlin, you had to have the proper paperwork after the wall went up. Like, not just anybody could just cross over whenever they wanted. It was called Checkpoint Charlie, and you would have like American soldiers on West Berlin, and you would have Soviet soldiers on East Berlin, and they would both have to look at your paperwork and be like, are you sure you want to do this? You know, what's your reason for traveling to the other side? I took pictures. The TED Ed is actually going to explain to you that the Berlin Wall, you know, there was two points of view, ways of life on both sides, and there are pieces of the wall up in museums, and they're all over the world. And if you're lucky enough to see one, like, it's amazing. And so I have seen one in a couple of the museums I've gone to. There's one in President Gerald Ford's museum in Michigan, and then I saw one at the Franklin Roosevelt Museum in New York and John F. Kennedy's Museum in Boston. And this actually is a sculpture in Franklin Roosevelt's museum. His library is the building, and it's got barbed wire, and there's pieces of the Berlin Wall cut out as people, and it was made by Winston Churchill's granddaughter. Actually, she made that to honor Franklin Roosevelt. So you'll also see that the one side has graffiti on it, but the other side does not. So the one side with graffiti, this is West Berlin, because the other side without graffiti, that is East Berlin, because you can't get that close. There is something that, like, imagine if there was like lines right here. It's called the death strip, and that's what the TED is going to talk about. You would be shot, you would be in prison. Well, mainly you would be shot, but if you were caught, you'd be put in prison. If you got that close, it's called the death strip. You couldn't even get that close because there's armed guards pointing down at you. 138 people died trying to escape or climb the wall. A person used a hot air balloon to float over the wall. Someone ran a tank into the wall. So they were desperate these people were desperate to try to leave. And so you'll see any side with graffiti, that is the United States side, because we didn't have the death strip. We weren't killing people. The other side without graffiti is the Soviet-controlled side. That's me in front of the piece of the Berlin Wall. Pretty amazing, you guys. I wish I could take you all and visit. This is JFK's section of the Berlin Wall, and you'll see they have a mirror back here to show you the back. Again, there's no graffiti. That's the Soviet-controlled side because they were killing people who were trying to escape. The German citizens were stuck, and they had to deal with this awful division in their cities. And the TED Ed does a great job of explaining, you know, how divisive this really was. And yes, it was a wall in one city, but this is much bigger than that. It really divided the world. It was a global division that was a symbol of communism, you know, like, oh, this is what life is like for people who live under a communist country. This is what life is like for people who live under a dictatorship. Like, it's scary, and it was real for people, and it was up for 4 decades. And so imagine living stuck and frozen in time, basically, on East Berlin side. And you now have to say, like, okay, I will do anything that I can to survive over here, or I'll try to escape the TED says, 4 decades, these people had to live with this division. It ends, and it does a really good job of ending with how barriers that impede freedom can come down. Because when the Berlin Wall falls, a lot of people, including myself, view that as the end of the Cold War. They view that as the end of communism, because when the Berlin Wall falls, November 9th, 1989, people start to tear it down. They're taking hammers and destroying the Berlin Wall, because it represented so much hatred and such a horrible mindset of like, this is a dictatorship. You must do what the dictatorship says. And people wanted to be free. They wanted to be free, and they wanted to see their family members. So when the Berlin Wall fell, we have pieces of it, like getting to take a picture in front of the Berlin Wall. Why are they still up? Why are we looking at these pieces when it represented such a horrible time period of decades of division and separation? It's still up to remind us that walls do not do anything. They don't do anything, because freedom will win. And in this case, democracy will win, right? Like, this wall was there to represent communist dictatorship and to keep people in and to control people. Well, when that wall was taken down, Germany was reunited, the Soviet Union fell. You can see after the fact that nobody wanted this. And of course, Nikita Khrushchev is like, it doesn't care whether people want it or not, but barriers that are there to stop freedom from happening can and should be taken down. That is why we have the Berlin Wall stationed everywhere, or in museums, I mean. And this down here around like the 4 sides of the statue, that's at FDR's 4 Freedoms speech, when he said freedom from fear, freedom from want, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, of worship, because that was a direct pause and the wall was a prevention of freedom. And so when Winston Churchill's granddaughter made this, she said, well, FDR gave his famous freedom speech of how important freedom is for us as Americans and for the world, and how he wanted to protect freedom, that arsenal of democracy, right? So she put that at the bottom of the sculpture, and it's absolutely amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So again, if you get a chance to go to a museum that has the Berlin Wall, really soak it in, and it's amazing. One side has graffiti. That's controlled by the United States, because we weren't killing people for getting too close. Watch the TED Ed video. It talks about that. It's called the death strip. And the other side doesn't have anything, right? It's just amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So yeah, this is the Berlin crisis, guys. You know, we've gotten to a point where JFK has to make a decision, and he says, we're not going to leave our people. We're not going to leave and give up this fight for freedom, because we're not scared of communism. I'm not scared of Nikita Khrushchev. He's a dictator, and he's limiting the rights of these people, and I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to give up. So the Berlin crisis leads to the creation of the Berlin Wall. Decades of having that wall up, dividing families, and I mean, everything is divided. Your everyday life is now focused on whether, what the dictatorship is going to do, who can you see today. People are suffering so much on the East Berlin side and East German side. So the Berlin crisis was a really big turning point, and Kennedy realized, I'm not going to make the mistake of the Bay of Pigs invasion. I'm going to handle this my way, and the way that I think will turn out best for the citizens. So the Cold War is heating up. It is heating up. We are creating bomb shelters just in case Nikita Khrushchev decides to attack us. We are building up our troops in West Germany. Like I said, my dad being sent over to West Germany to protect the citizens from those dang commies. And it's getting serious. It's getting serious. We're building up our military, like I said, and we're ready for anything, and we're trying to be ready for anything. Most importantly, we're there to protect the citizens of Berlin and Germany, West Berlin and West Germany. All right. Don't forget to write a summary for that slide. Please watch the TED Ed video. Like I said, like I always say, this one's a really good one. And they do a really great job of explaining why this was so horrific for the people of Germany. All right. See you guys.